at the top of the program, and this came out late last week or right at the top of the weekend, the news that luscious Johnny Valiant had been hit and killed actually by a car crossing the road near Pittsburgh, where he had been living for forever. He's originally from there. And so that was, but we didn't really get a chance to talk about it on the previous programs because we were pre-taped and et cetera. And we wanted to wait until the experience would reach everybody. But I've obviously have been closer to Jimmy Valiant than Johnny over the years because Jimmy was here so long and I've known him and worked with him so many times. But Johnny, actually, I got to see, and I was telling you this right before we went on the air, as they say, I got to see the very first run of the Valiant Brothers as the Valiant Brothers in Indianapolis when they came in 73 for Bruiser. Handsome Jimmy had been there for a while, and Bobby Heenan managed him and Baron von Raschke and the Blackjacks when I first started watching the program like a year and a half earlier or whatever. But then the Valiant Brothers come in. Johnny had been John L. Sullivan and had worked under a few previous names, and he was from the Pittsburgh area, but he finally got a break, and that was perfect. The Valiant Brothers were the classic bleach blonde heel wrestling tag team of the 70s, I think, to be quite honest. Are you arguing with me or ignoring me?
No, I mean, I'm trying to think. There were so many great blonde tag teams in the 50s and the 60s. They may be the last great one, the one from the 70s, yeah.
Yeah, because they were kind of old-fashioned and at the same time, and I mean, now people, if Wayne Ferris hears this, he'll say, what about me and Larry, the Blonde Bombers? Or what? There were, and obviously the other Blonde Bombers, Patterson and Stevens. But with Patterson and Stevens, I'm not even talking about a bleach blonde team. They were a great tag team. Two guys happened to be bleach blonde at that point. The Valiant Brothers being the bleach blonde team, they were the modern day evolution in the 70s when it was modern of those classic old 50s heel glamour boy tag teams. And Handsome's promo, because Johnny was the brother. He was, as I told Horner one time, if this was a movie, you'd be the best friend. In that team, Handsome was the star, but Johnny was a great stooge brother. And I don't mean that as a derogatory. It worked because Jimmy had already been in the territory. So when he brings luscious Johnny in, he's and this was before Jimmy was the raging, screaming boogie woogie man that just made no sense when just at the top of his lungs and the beard down to his nuts in the 80s for Crockett. He still didn't have a beard. He was clean shaven. He had the slick bleach blonde hair back down halfway down his shoulders. He was wearing the gold lame jackets with the star and the big apple on the back and shit, right? This was glamour boy, handsome Jimmy Valiant. That's where the handsome came from. And he was more subdued, but he'd do the promo with Sam Miniker. He'd say, Sam Miniker, handsome Jimmy is from the Big Apple, New York City, daddy. And handsome Jimmy is the idol of the women, brother. And handsome Jimmy, mama, has all these sexy muscles, baby daddy. And now I have brought Sam Miniker. I have brought my brother from the Big Apple. I've gone all the way to the Big Apple, daddy, and got my brother, mama. And his luscious Johnny, baby daddy. and I mean, shit, and it was like the only thing that we are brothers. We are the same. We are identical. The only difference between us is I'm not luscious. I'm just handsome. And he's not handsome. He's just luscious. Otherwise than that, we are completely identically the same, daddy. Mama Boogie. Yeah. And they had the sunglasses and with Lou Albano, they were perfect in New York, right? When they finally did go to New York. But meanwhile, Jimmy was born in fucking Tennessee and grew up mostly around Chicago, Hammond, Indiana. And Johnny is from Pittsburgh, so neither one had the New York accent. But for the people in Indianapolis, they thought, well, that's how those fucking people in New York talk. But it was great, and Jimmy was flamboyant, but Johnny hung with him in the ring, and they took the big bumps, and they backed up and stooged off and were chicken shit heels and did the glamour boy stuff, and it was and with Heenan, and it was good. So the first program, actually, well, I don't know about the first program, but the big program, they came in, established themselves as heels. Guess who was the tag team champions at the time in summer-ish 1973 in Indiana?
Indiana babyface tag team summer 73.
The champions.
The champions. It couldn't have been Bruiser and Snyder at that point. I don't know.
You're half right. Dick the Bruiser and Bruno Sammartino.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Because Bruno had dropped the belt by request. He didn't want to schedule anymore, and he'd semi-retired 71, 72, and then he started doing shots again for just people that he respected, which I think were few. It was basically Bruiser at that point. In Indianapolis, he was flying in for the big shows. And so I think they beat Ladd and Von Raschke possibly for the belts. But then the Valiants established themselves as the heel team. And then when finally Vince Sr. talks Bruno into coming back to be the champion in December, he was still the tag team champions with Bruiser. So in January and I think first part of February, Bruno finished up by coming back in to drop. So Bruiser and Bruno dropped the belts to the Valiant Brothers in Indianapolis. And I would assume, I don't know, and we got to find out. Maybe we're going to have Dave Grayson on the program soon. He might not know since it was Indianapolis and not Detroit, but I wonder who did the job. But as a result, the Valiant Brothers got over like God in Indianapolis, and it was and the promos were great, and the matches, they just flew for the heels and then did their shit, and they bled. And they got over so good, they came back and had a run again in 77, 78. Which is how Jimmy got the spot in Memphis, because he asked Bruiser for a heel for his title tournament just to come in and make a shot. And Jimmy got over so well with the people in Memphis that Jarrett switched it, put the belt on him, and got more dates on him. And they would do deals where they'd bring in his brother Johnny against, I think, Dundee and Lawler one time, or Luscious Johnny, when Handsome Jimmy wrestled Lawler. Luscious Johnny would be the masked New York referee, and that would be revealed. And people knew because they'd been in all the magazines. So I know a lot of people think of Johnny Valiant as the 80s manager, and he had the gift of gab and was a good talker, et cetera, but I remember Handsome Jimmy and Luscious Johnny and the Valiant Brothers. They were my first favorite real heel tag team. And there was definitely a lot of Valiant Brothers promos being cut around here at the house in 74, 73.
I feel like their behavior was influential. And like, if you ever see anyone, like I remember Fridays, the show that was on ABC with Michael Richards and Larry David, they had a skit. Maybe it was the Golden Boys or the Golden Brothers. I forget.
Yeah.
And it was basically the Valiant Brothers. It was, because it wasn't just the bleach blonde hair. There were certain things they did that other people picked up on and started doing, like the putting your hands on your hips and just kind of looking to the sky while the guy's talking to you.
The mannerisms, in the ring and out, the mannerisms, the poochie pout on the promo, baby, and the nodding of the head and the strut. They took the strut to more of a fucking, duck walk. I don't fucking know what they were doing, but it was just the heel cockiness of that era was the Valiant Brothers took what had come before and advanced a lot of it, and that was when a lot of the influential next generation of TV performers were growing up in the major markets watching wrestling. So it kind of, what's the word I'm searching for? It transferred over, transmogrified. It was absorbed in all of that.
When I was a kid, I only knew Johnny Valiant as Johnny V, the manager in the WWF. And I would watch his promos, and I was pretty hip. I was into comedy at a young age. And I remember thinking, wow, his stuff must be so advanced that I'll only get it when I grow up.
Yeah.
I have no idea what he's saying. And now as an adult with a fully formed mind, I go back and I watch some of his stuff. I still have no idea.
You don't get it, yeah.
No, it's this super psycho gibberish that he would say. Like, there's the one promo that I love with WrestleMania 3. It's him and the Dream Team and Dino Bravo. And I guess because Dino Bravo's French, he says, "Parlez-vous scrambled eggs, Grandma?" And I'm like, what? It's just the whole promo.
Yeah,
it's just him talking gibberish.
The thing is, it worked for the Valiant Brothers, but I don't know that it worked for Johnny V as a manager. Because that was the thing. I think part of the idea with the Valiant Brothers was everybody thought these fucking wacko fucking bleach blonde fucking lunatics are all whacked out also on some kind of heavy drugs from New York City. And they were supposed to not make any sense in a kind of cool way. But once it only worked for some reason, it only worked either for Jimmy as a single or the team as a team. It didn't necessarily translate. Johnny just sounded like he's nuts.
Well, that's the thing, too, I guess. The big thing
know,
is that there really was a chemistry with the two of them. Because even though Jimmy kept up and obviously got more manic with that persona, them together is really the best stuff with Johnny in terms of his personality shining, because it's them, their interplay. It's them playing off each other.
Yeah, it was a great team. But anyway, so I have no idea. They were, he and someone else, correct? Was his wife? Did you read this? Did you hear about this? We're crossing the road, but apparently before dawn, a busy road. I didn't know roads were busy before dawn, or why they came to be crossing it, or how the person hit them. But that more details to come. But it's a shame, because once again, more of my childhood, the Valiant Brothers. Fuck, it was a big, when they finally came down here, I got to see them in person. That was a big fucking deal. And Jimmy had already been here, but it was just the idea of both of them together. That was a big time team at that point.